On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don. I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. Before we hop into today's show, I just wanted to briefly talk about my new company called D3 or D Cubed. It focuses in on helping companies in our space with digital media presence. And so please check us out at d3dm.com. Today, my guest on the podcast is Amy Brown. Amy's an executive with 20 years of public and private sector experience in healthcare, public relations, startup management, policy development, quality improvement, and insurance operations. She also is the founder and CEO of AuthentiCx. So with that, welcome, Amy.
Thanks. Great to be here, Don.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So first, just to start us off, can you tell listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I have had a really interesting career that has not taken a linear path. I've curved around many times, but it's been really fulfilling. So I grew up daughter of a physician and was immersed in the kind of clinical healthcare world at a very early age. This was pre-HIPAA. And so because of that, I was actually had the awesome opportunity as a kid to go on some surgery trips with my dad, including a heart transplant once.
Oh,
So
wow.
I got to see firsthand kind of the behind the scenes stuff. But I learned pretty quickly that I wasn't destined to follow in his footsteps as a clinician, but I was really fascinated with macro level systemic issues that that come from the business of healthcare. And so my education and my career right after I graduated from a grad program was really focused in policy and first in state government, and then I jumped over to the private sector and got neck deep into the payer space. I then had a detour and a stint in the life sciences space. And through all of it, I learned just about where kind of humanity and complexity of the business of healthcare meet. And that really is what inspired AuthentiCx. And so in 2018, I left my corporate career and took a big dive into the world of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting, right? I mean, we do so many things to try and focus in on, patients and serving patients and things like that. But there are a lot of things that sort of, I would say, remove that side of humanity and empathy and things like that. And it's so often times that you hear even companies in healthcare talk about, how important it is to be empathetic to, not just the, other people that you work with, but also with the patients that you serve.
Yes. I mean, what we're finding through our work is that empathy is this amazing catalyst that unlocks change. And so finding a way in the business of healthcare to infuse opportunities for people to become empathetic, regardless of whether they work in accounting, HR, or in the clinical side, they all need that connection to what they're doing to remember kind of why they get out of bed every day. And that's a huge opportunity out there and one that we're pursuing.
Yeah, and it seems like, I mean, as you said, I mean, your career has touched a lot of different areas, overall. One of the things that I saw was that, you also spend a lot of time with customer experience just in general. What do you think a lot of companies get right, and what do they frankly get wrong with regards to customer experience?
Yes, all of my roles throughout my career were really focused in operations, and you know that included our customer experience, channels where we were engaging with the customer every day. What I believe the industry gets right is, there's this pretty well-founded notion now that customer experience matters and that you cannot win in the market based on product or price alone, that you must have um, a well-defined customer journey that actually meets needs for customers. And so that adoption or that belief in that notion as a as a competitive advantage, CX being a competitive advantage, that's right. That's right, and it's great to see it. And it's great to not have to convince an industry of that. What they're getting wrong is the source of their insights that help guide them in their response reaction to um, what they believe the customer needs. So many teams are relying on skewed sets of data or incomplete sets of data to understand what the actual customer experience is. And so they end up developing strategy, reaction, response on something that's very small or very skewed. And oftentimes, that incomplete picture creates an incomplete strategy that doesn't actually drive the ROI. And so the people in the organization that are responsible for profitability and revenue are wondering why they're investing in CX altogether. And so there becomes that tension point. And so they really need to do a better job of making CX based strategies that are founded in really strong data.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, also, one of the things that I frequently talk to people about is like, the Japanese have this term Genchi Genbutsu, which is, go and see. And it's, one of the things that I oftentimes tell people is there's nothing better than sort of asking somebody, show me what you experience whenever you deal with us, and as well. I mean, in addition to, sort of the data and things like that, which a lot of us, have to use to try and aggregate, what is exactly happening, across all of my customers, versus one customer experience or, even a handful. So, yeah.
Right.
I agree. So, one of the things that I believe Authentics focuses on is commercial patient services. Can you tell us, just a little bit more about commercial patient services?
Yes. So, one of the things that we found is that brand teams, as well as the patient services teams that support, patient engagement and help support access for patients. One of the things that they are looking for is insights that help them refine that patient experience such that they're really meeting their needs and not only driving patient outcomes but also meeting business objectives. And so one of the ways Authentics helps is we partner with commercial side of pharma and life sciences organizations to listen at scale to those everyday conversations that flow into their uh, patient support, customer support programs. And when we listen at scale, what we're doing is at a very macro view, using machine learning and AI to pick out the themes that are driving, customer friction as well as customer delight. And we're able to drill into those themes in a way that gives leaders a really immersive and contextually rich view, and they know it's data backed because it's using the universe of interactions that they're having with their customer, whether those customers are providers, caregivers, or the patients themselves. And so what they're doing with this data is iterating their programs, personalizing their programs, making them more impactful, useful, meaningful to the patients they serve. So yeah, that's how we work with that functional area.
That's amazing. And so who are your clients whenever whenever you're interacting in this space, who primarily are the people who are coming to Authentics?
Yes. So we work with enterprise healthcare companies, which include payers, providers, and then life sciences. And in life sciences, uh, we work with all types of life sciences organizations, device, diagnostics, and kind of traditional pharma. And the 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 buyers or the folks that we're working with on a day in, day out basis are those who are responsible for building out the therapy's customer journey. And so they're brand teams, they are patient services teams who are focused on things like access to medication, helping patients have the resources they need to be educated about their condition as well as their course of therapy. They're there to help support any of the navigation of the complexity of getting, benefits squared away with their payer, and making sure that patients don't have roadblocks or barriers to actually filling the prescription and starting therapy. So those are the teams we work with most often in the life sciences space, and the ones that are using this listening at scale technology to devise, more effective strategies.
It just seems like, I mean, a lot of at least big pharma, right? I mean, they can have multiple drugs, multiple indications. I mean, oftentimes they do this filtering at the beginning of any, sort of call interaction. The same thing with device manufacturers. Any sort of call menu would have, like pick this device, which then directs you to somebody that really knows that thing. And then I kind of think about whenever I'm listening to you describe this, it's almost like, I could envision a world eventually where, more generalists are setting their, being fed, kind of the right information in terms of response and things like that. They're probably would be better enabled to answer questions and things as well. It's interesting to me to hear, what you're doing as well with AI.
Yes, there's so much happening in the space to try to improve the interactions themselves and reduce friction. One of the things that we're really focused on, though, is not just improving that one-to-one interaction between, agent or representative and patient or provider, but to aggregate the content of these conversations to understand where value is for customer populations, where friction is for customer populations, and infusing the insights from a very operational data source, meaning contact center, but infusing the entire C suite and all functional areas within the enterprise with this data. Because really, when you listen at scale and you are listening to the universe of your interactions, you're actually like getting so much more than insights about the interaction logistics. You're getting so much more from patients. They talk about what their disease state's like. They talk about how they're frustrated. They talk about their social determinants of health, even though they don't call them that in these, calls. They talk about what the competitors are doing. They talk about how they feel about their physician. All of these insights are so important to devising a really comprehensive strategy. And the biggest thing that's happening in the organizations that we support with our work is that the entire enterprise outside of operations is seeing the value of conversational data as the North Star, as the shining star of insights that can help them have a much better informed strategy to meet business objectives.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important, and it's interesting too to to think about all of the things that could be shared that eventually could impact the future decisions of an organization as well, right? I mean, in the next drug that we develop, we're going to make sure that this thing doesn't happen anymore.
Absolutely. I mean, it is absolutely impacting for the clients we serve how they design care models, right? Because they're learning from brands that are already launched about particular disease states, patient populations, and how they respond to a particular care journey that they've designed, right? And so it's where you take that beautiful care journey that's in theory on a beautiful PowerPoint, and where the rubber meets the road is listening to the actual interactions to see what does reality look like, and how are customers actually experiencing that journey that has been designed. We're identifying the friction points, and then leaders are able to say, okay, with the next brand launch or the next indication launch, we're going to use these insights that we gain from listening to build a more effective journey for this particular patient population.
Yeah, and I mean, so I'm assuming that that whenever patients call in, right, there's the consent that they give is essentially, look, this recording may be used for training purposes and whatever. It's interesting to me to think that whenever you're giving that consent, um, if the company were working on something new that could actually benefit that individual, even more, that training opportunity actually could be, hey, look, this patient is a better fit for this other thing that we're working on as well. Yeah, I mean, I could think of so many places where, um, again, I understand that you know, we're trying to become more and more conservative with regards to the information that we give up, but I also, see such great benefit, in terms of, what you could receive back instead of, sort of limiting or constraining, all the information as well. And so, yeah, I mean, very exciting.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, information security, privacy, and making sure we respect um, the regulatory firewalls that occur, that are in place is super important to the work we do. What we've found through our work is that it's less important t- to um, use insights that are applied at the one-to-one patient level. Our focus is more on taking the themes that reside in these conversations to develop insights that are um, generalizable and helpful to the whole organization. Our data is never used to directly target market back to individual patients. It's really meant to inform leaders on where to prioritize, on where to focus when they're developing a plan of action for their company. We're looking at prevalence data and big themes around emotion and topics that people care about, and it's less about going back to that individual patient that may have called in.
This is such an important clarification. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
In terms of opportunities for Authentics, what are the biggest opportunities that you see ahead?
Yes. Well, AuthentiCx just completed its Series B fundraise, and I'm proud of that because the economy isn't particularly friendly to fundraising right now. But it was a testament to, um, the work we're doing and the innovation we're seeing. What what I see as a huge opportunity for our company is to continue to add use cases for the data that we glean and collect for life sciences organizations. Um, we are seeing more and more evidence of issues in these interactions around health equity, social determinants of health, and insights that could help companies understand why patients stop therapy or don't complete their course. And so moving from just insights around how do you improve the overall customer interaction to what I would call higher fruit on the tree. How do we actually improve health outcomes? How do we understand the challenges that patients face? Um, those types of insights also reside in this data. And so our machine learning engineers are very busy, developing new AI models that can help life sciences organizations really target some of those higher fruit items on the tree. So I'm excited about that.
So important. And then in terms of challenges, what are the biggest challenges that you face?
Well, the biggest challenges we face are really the complexity of the organizations we serve and the complexity of the overarching healthcare system. I have this wonderful vantage point, our whole company does, where we're getting, insights from three pillars of the healthcare industry: payers, providers, and pharma. And when you zoom above and look at it all, you just see this really crushing level of complexity that are affecting the organization's ability to to live out their potential with the value prop that they have, because they're dependent on these other pillars and all the rules and regulations and complexity of that. And then if you zoom into the individual patients whose voices were surfacing, we are just every day just seeing the crushing nature of the complexity on patients. And so as we work to bring insights to our clients, the biggest question that they have is, how do we even begin to address the complexity that's killing us, that's killing our patients? And that's a challenge for all of us. And I'm convinced we're only going to get there if we um, work together
Mm.
across those three verticals. And I hope to be at the center of that, bringing insights to the three collective entities to help us do the right thing for our healthcare consumers, for ourselves, for our families, for our providers, et cetera.
It does make us one of the most complex industries that's out there, right? I mean, we have sort of four different groups that have to interact, and none of them sort of um, are, let's say, tied together, other than the fact that you have this patient experience all the way through, right? So you have the patient, then you have the provider, you have the insurance company, you have the person who's developing or created whatever it is that's meant to serve the patient. And none of those three things, those three entities, are necessarily tied together, other than the patient experience and the need to reimburse at the end of the day. So it is a very complex problem that you're dealing with, for sure.
It is absolutely. And every day we hear patients saying, I am the one navigating between these three or four entities. I am the one in the middle, stuck. And we just hear it in mass proportions. We hear 93-year-old individuals who are on a life-saving, life-sustaining medication having to, call one entity, hang up the phone, go talk to their provider, ask where the form is, then call the insurance company. Did you get the form? No, you didn't. Okay, I got to call back. I mean, it's we've all experienced it in some fashion if we live in the US and are a healthcare consumer. But it is mass proportions, and the burden of navigating that journey is on the patient themselves. And it absolutely is impacting health outcomes. It's not only wasting mass amounts of money for our whole system as a country, but it's impacting patients' ability to get the care they need.
Yeah. Then I mean, I can only imagine somebody who lives with somebody who has disabilities, right? That continually is having to not only care for themselves and their own healthcare needs, they're also doing this for somebody else. I know I have an older parent that lives with us. That we're continually kind of navigating the same thing for her. I mean, we're constantly trying to help, but at the same time, it's like this is so confusing in some cases. And there's always, that question of, where do you find help? And frankly, we oftentimes turn to social media to try and understand, what have other people done? How do they help their parents, that are facing some of the same, struggles. And I can only imagine whenever you need, a drug or some device or some treatment, from your healthcare provider. Oftentimes in our case, we're not dealing with those sort of instances, but it is sometimes challenging to navigate our healthcare system, to say the
It's
least.
daunting. It's absolutely daunting. And you and I work in healthcare.
Right, right. Yeah, I have some really good resources as well. I won't deny that as well. The curveball I have to throw you though is, I mean, ChatGPT is constantly, out in the news today. And since you've, mentioned that your company uses AI, yeah, I guess, can you name like one benefit that you see coming in kind of the next generation of AI, and one, thing that you're worried about as well, or concerned about, not necessarily worried about, concerned about?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Chat GPT and the hype around it has done is really shine a light on the value of this unstructured data being, voice and conversational data. Um, and, one of the things that I see coming that is so important is the bar is being raised for AI. It was this silver bullet myth, 10 years ago. And what's happened is we've had early adopters, users of AI, purchasers of AI, and they've been disappointed because to have really effective AI that is reliable, that tells you something that's of use, you have to have high quality training data that trains your models. And if you've shortcutted that process, you're going to end up with data, trash in, trash out. And we see a lot of companies who have spent a lot of money on deploying an AI solution that has been disappointing. What we're seeing happening is that companies are saying, it's not good enough to just have something that's automated. It has to actually have value and something that is of use. One of the ways we're doing is we're training our AI models utilizing um, trainers, data labelers that are healthcare professionals that are based in the markets that we serve. So here in the US, and we employ them directly. We don't oversee, we don't send it overseas. We don't send it out to a third party. We employ people who understand the data because they've lived in the environment, in the industry, and they're tagging and labeling that data, which is creating AI that is more useful to the clients we serve because we're taking that very verticalized approach. And I think you're going to see more and more of that. What I'm concerned about, or what I think we all need to uh, you know, pay attention to, is really the so what. We should all be asking ourselves, what does the technology solve for our industry and particularly for our patients? I still think there is a hype factor that's out there. And leaders and organizations are being charged to go automate and improve their digital front door and their digital strategy and their use AI. And I'm imploring the industry and all leaders within those organizations to ask, okay, and what will we do with it? How will we change patient lives with it? How will we be better informed? How will we be better business people and leaders? And let's make sure that our technology is serving that purpose and not just a shiny bell or whistle.
So absolutely critical. Well, Amy, there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Yeah. So what inspires me is the change that I've seen happen in organizations, big, massive organizations, when they take the time to connect with the humanity of the people they serve. And one way to leverage technology to still drive that connection to the humanity is to use AI and scalable listening platforms to connect with the voice of your customer. This is not survey based data. This is taking voices of your actual customers and finding the voices that need to be heard by corporate citizens and making sure they hear them in a really scalable, efficient way. When that happens, we're seeing not only listening happen at scale, but we're seeing empathy happen at scale. And when empathy happens at scale, you start changing your organization because you now you don't just know it in your head, you know it in your gut and your heart. And I've just seen really amazing things happen in corporate America in the life sciences industry because of that connection to the humanity that they serve.
So excellent. And what concerns you?
Hmm. I feel like the complexity that we talked about is the most concerning. Like you can only go so far with a system that stays status quo. Um, if we're going to really make an impact on our affordability of our care in this country and um, the outcomes and the access to care, we have got to take a really hard look in the mirror at the complex systems that we've built and make some compromises or sacrifices across the healthcare verticals to try to come up with a better way for healthcare providers, for patients, and until we're willing to grapple with that, I think it's going to be really hard to make meaningful impact for all the health outcomes that we want to enjoy here in this country.
Thanks for sharing that. And then what excites you?
What excites me is that the voice of customer, you know, concept is evolving so quickly. And I'm excited that our company gets to be a part of that and hopefully is providing some leadership in that space. We're no longer dependent on retrospective survey-based ways to understand what customers are thinking because we're able to listen to what's top of mind, when they tell us, when they contact us, whether that's on a chat or an email or a phone conversation. The data that we have access to is allowing us to hear in their own words what's top of mind, what their priorities and needs are, what they care about. And that is so much more powerful than just, a skewed set of retrospective surveys. And getting to hear it in their own voice and their own words is so very powerful. And I'm just super excited that the voice of customer phenomenon is evolving.
Yeah, even from the start of this conversation until now, I mean, my thoughts have even, evolved quite a bit, as well in terms of the future of what customer experience and patient experience could be as well. So thank you for sharing that as well. Well, Amy Brown, thank you so much for being here on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here and sharing everything about AuthentiCx.
Thanks so much, John. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.